Oh, it's still stuck in my ass. Damn it.
Mine's stuck in my yard.
Ready? Good, okay. Welcome to the May 29th, 2014 meeting of the Sherborn Board of Selectmen. David, would you care to read the agenda?
Sure. We'll start with a vote to approve or amend the agenda, add topics not reasonably anticipated by the chair 48 hours in advance, then go to public comment, then talk about Town Center Water System Options Committee, and then we'll have several items under the Town Administrator report, including appreciation of Sherborn Cleanup Day volunteers, appointment vacancies, and review of a list of outstanding items, and look at upcoming meeting topics, and then any selectmen reports, and then approve minutes and the warrant, and set the next meeting right now. We'll have to discuss that. Then adjourn to executive session, not to return to open session to discuss, or discussion regarding non-union employment agreement, and discussion regarding police union collective bargaining agreement, and discuss strategy with respect to pending litigation of Cannon et al. Versus Town of Sherborn Zoning Board of Appeals and Town of Sherborn Planning Board.
Okay, very good. Does anybody have anything to add to the agenda?
No. I move to accept the agenda as written.
Second?
All in favor? Aye. Okay. Now we have public comment. Does anybody have any comment?
No, go ahead. Doug, no, go ahead.
You were quicker on the draw, Doug.
I'm going to sit up here.
Sure, thank you.
In my capacity as the Veteran Service Officer for the town, I'd like to make a comment about the Memorial Day ceremony that was held on Monday. For the past 20-odd years, Mike Kickham has been the person who has every year made all the many arrangements necessary to make the parade and ceremony a meaningful experience for our residents, especially for our children, who are a big part of the day as Boy and Girl Scouts, Cub Scouts, Brownies, and Daisies. I'm sure you are aware that he puts in a lot of time and effort to make the day successful, and has for years. For that, the town owes Mike a great debt of gratitude. I know that the veterans of town certainly appreciate all that he has done. Now, I'm aware that the weather on Monday prior to the parade was discouraging for many. Fortunately, the rain had passed before we stepped off, and it obviously reduced the number of residents who would usually attend. However, I'm quite disappointed in the lack of official town participation in the ceremony. Unlike in past years, there was no police honor guard leading the parade. And in no way do I mean to belittle the fire department honor guard, which was perfect for the occasion, but the presence of the police department as an official town organization is very important. I know that the police are very much in evidence for traffic control, but their marching with our flag at the head of the column is a striking sign of their respect for the day. In addition, the overall turnout of the fire department was meager compared to past years. I know that there are no longer the number of town resident volunteers on the fire service as in the past, but that does not mean that the other employees of the department need not attend. Similarly, one selectman attended, whereas in the past the board has been represented by all three members. I'm sure that there are valid reasons why this was so, but nevertheless it does indicate that perhaps the day was not as high on the list of civic duties as perhaps it should be. One group that has always enthusiastically taken part are the Scouts. Every year the various Scout groups are a very big part of the observance, and their participation has always been great and is especially meaningful to those of us who attend. I guess that what I'm saying is that a town ceremony such as Memorial Day, with all its significance and importance, should not be halfway down the list of to-dos for town officials, but should instead be number one on the list.
Thanks, Doug. Thanks for your comments.
Can I just say thanks to Mike Kickham? I think I agree entirely with the recognition that Doug was trying to give Mike. Mike has done this for many years. You've done a great job. You put a lot of time into it. There's been a lot of work, aggravation, and weather, and all kinds of things that you've had to deal with. You've dealt with it beautifully. The community does owe you a tremendous debt of gratitude. thank you for that.
I had a couple of comments, is that all right?
Sure.
Okay. I have to agree with what Doug is saying, except for the accolades for myself. Okay? Everything else is, falls into line. And I must say that I find it difficult to make, to express concerns about such a wonderful day as Memorial Day, because we had a fine showing of the town folk. We had a great showing of scouts, girls, brownies, you name it. We had, at the COA luncheon today, I got a lot of comments from people as I went up and down the elevator with them about what a great event it was, and they thanked, okay? So what I'm saying is an excellent event, and it always has been. I don't think a lot of people recognized the void that Doug was talking about. So it didn't take away from it, but it does take away from the veterans and my head, okay? Because I am, I'm concerned that it may continue, and I hope that maybe some changes can be made. I will say I talked to Dave Bento, referencing this. I met him at 7 o'clock on the I think it was Friday morning. And Dave has always been great. Boy, he said, Mike, I got to tell you something. We have a budget problem, that type of thing. It's difficult. I said, Dave, don't put it on your shoulder. Don't put it on your shoulder. It's not you. It's not you. And we left, and I said, Dave, you're a great guy. Just go. And so I will say that, I don't know if you had a chance to read the Dover Sherborn Press or the Hometown Weekly that came today, but there's pictures, front page pictures of both, in both papers, and a great article in the Dover Sherborn Press. In fact, there's a picture of Doug in it. So, I don't want to be critical, but in comparison, there was a void, okay? And I really believe, and I think Doug just put it pretty well when he said you got to move it up the ladder as to importance. That, hey, by the way, Memorial Day is coming, what are we going to do? And I'm thinking, and talking to Dave, that we may change the departure place to the tennis court. Now, this doesn't, we don't have to talk about this now, versus going from the town garage, because there aren't a ton of people that they split there at the fire station. But anyway, that's subject for another day. But
Okay.
we can talk about that.
Thanks, Mike. Kitty, you had your hand up?
Yes, I just had a chance to watch your meeting of last Thursday night, was it? And you commented on the 2 articles that were to be submitted to the general court
Right.
after as part of the town meeting vote. And I was wondering, did you send supporting letters with each of the, or have you sent supporting letters to the general court?
There's one letter that's been submitted, and it was the town administrator article, and the other article we discussed last week, and we will submit that with a letter that hasn't been prepared yet.
Okay, fine, thank you. But if I may make another comment, the wording to see if the town will vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen, that was the wording that town council asked us to put in. We wanted to, had it read to instruct the Board of Selectmen, and she requested that we soften it. So I just want to make that comment.
Okay. Sean?
Mind if I give you a couple pictures?
Sure.
Those are today. ball field. Much like me, that problem's not going away. I've requested to be on the agenda to discuss that and the broader issue.
David, you see?
What is this?
Those are behind your house,
What's going on behind my
drainage
house?
pits, one of which is still filled with street sweeping, so. The bigger issue is it's still not fixed. We haven't discussed it. CM&D hasn't fully addressed it. And I'm still waiting for an opportunity to discuss it with you guys. Something to think about as you go into executive session.
Did you report this to anyone on CM&D?
If anyone on CM&D doesn't know it's there, that's shame on them. It's been like that for a couple of weeks.
Yeah, I don't know if they've been checking it, but
Well, that's something we contracted with an outside vendor to repair, Dave?
yeah,
Was that the one that Scott repaired?
yeah. But I don't think it's any problem with their workmanship. But
Okay,
I'll talk
well-
to the CM&D director.
I can fill you in on all the facts if you want them.
Probably not.
Okay?
Not tonight, anyway.
I mean, what it looked like to me, which was my concern before, is that they're not above the ground level, they're below, and it looks like it just washed out over the top and got.
David, can you speak up, please? Oh, you have a goal, I'm sorry.
It looks like they were recessed below the ground, and then when they filled
His
up, it's
microphone
just
turned
plugged up.
on.
But I have to check with our staff person.
I mean, I don't know. I'm not sure any of the selectmen have.
I
drainage
actually,
expertise.
yeah, I have no drainage expertise. I did ask the CM&D director yesterday after all the rain, I just said, how'd that effort hold up? And the report was that, there was overflow, but it was going back in once the water recedes, so, and the fields were wet now. I'm no expert on it, so I look at that, I don't know what that means.
I am impressed with how big the prints are, though. I think
Those are
most people would hand us little
quality
things. Those
images.
are suitable for framing.
Trying to make a point.
Yeah, I know. They're very clear.
Is it?
The pictures are very.
Trying to make it for about 6 months.
The pictures are clear.
It's much more than a drain hole. Because Goulding Street looks pretty much like that. Like to see where that is on the agenda.
Susan.
Yeah, I have a question that also seems to apparently go back 6 months. I know yesterday I reported to the town administrator and the CM&D director that East Goulding Street and the culverts right there by Soul Brook,
Yeah.
which has gone back to traffic safety first, documented that in an email and said that something needed to be done. That was first addressed in an email to the CM&D director on December 9th. And it was in January 16th after I went by and saw that it was undermined, the road, the pavement undermined by at least another 2 feet, that the first steel plates went up. And as you watched since December, it's another steel plate, another steel plate. And yesterday when I went by, the road was collapsing beyond the steel plates up to the center of the line. Half of that road has collapsed. And yes, I appreciate that Mr. Wagner called me and said that 2 more plates would be put on there. And they were yesterday. But when is that road going to collapse? We have school bus drivers that are very concerned driving bus loads of children over that road. And yet here we are, we're pushing 6 months and nothing but a little patch of a steel plate. And also a sign that says, road construction ahead, use at your own risk. There is no construction going on. Nothing has been done but a steel Band-Aid. When is this going to be fixed and addressed? This is a huge safety issue and a liability for the town.
Do you have info on this?
Yeah, the CM&D director had talked to Conservation about what type of culvert they could put in. Once it was decided what type of culvert to put in, then had to submit a request, I think it was $55,000 to the state to get the project approved under the Chapter 90 money, which he did. And then ordered the culvert, and from what I understand, this box culvert is a 4x4 box culvert that we should get in the next week or two, and then it should be all taken care of in the next 2 to 3 weeks.
Okay. And Rick, do you have any thoughts on the safety issue? I'd understood you've been out there.
Yeah, I went out there with Sergeant Tessel and Ed Wagner yesterday. That's what prompted Ed to put that second plate on the down lane.
Okay. But it's been looked at in terms of safety?
Well, I'm not a road engineer, and I'd have to defer to Ed. It looks like it's in need of repair, I will say that. We discussed closing the road, but Ed felt pretty comfortable putting on that 20-foot, 1-inch steel plate on the opposite side of the culvert, so.
If I can make a comment about that, that's actually 2 plates, and they're not pinned or welded together, which legally, if you put plates on a lane of travel, you have to pin them to the road, you can't just have them sitting there.
And the previous.
And common sense would tell you, don't put the 2 plates on the ditch, so they'll fall in it, that's where they are.
And the previous plates that have been put on, they were level when they're put on. If you go out there, if I put a level to them, they probably already sunk another foot off the road, so they're going like this off the road. Now we've just put more over here going, so the whole road is nothing but steel plates from guide rail to guide rail.
Okay.
It needs to be addressed. And sooner
I think you
than
just
later-
heard David, how it's being addressed.
Yes, I
yeah.
realize that, but it also, through the Conservation Commission, this can be done under an emergency certificate, like the other side of Woodland Street was done 2 years ago on that culvert. Emergency permit, done. None of this 6 months delay.
It was
Thank you.
in March when Conservation gave the approval to operate under general order of conditions and to work with the agent on the construction details. It was after that that the application was sent to the state for the chapter 9.
Okay. Elliot?
I think the fire department should be notified about this culvert on Golding Street East.
They are aware.
And my comment is, I've complained about the bark mulch against the trees here on town property for months, years. It's still there. Now, damn it, will you get rid of it?
I second that. That's really a bad thing.
You took a vote on that as a policy 2-3 weeks ago.
I watched them install it, and I watched them rake it back away from the base of the tree. And I saw the base of the tree from where the past mulch has been. So I'm not sure what else.
Yeah, I saw the same thing
Done.
coming in this morning. The piles of bark mulch stop a few inches away from the tree.
Right.
That's what I observed.
You don't put bark mulch against a living tree.
We agree.
So we
They
all
do
agree.
it all the time, there's big bucks in it. But ask any good horticulturalist, and I gave you the newspaper here a couple of months ago. I've heard it on call-in horticultural programs. Don't put bark against a living tree. But there's big bucks in it, so away it goes. When the trees die, I'll say I told you so, but that's not gonna bring the trees back. I'll have to wait another 50 years for that.
Okay, Susan, is this something new, or?
Absolutely something new. In follow-up to a public comment I had 2 meetings ago regarding garlic mustard. After that meeting, I went out, yes, as I told you, Michael, you do have it in your front, along your street, and Elliot Taylor had asked me to go to his place. He has it and his neighbor has it. So people need to get out there and pull it now. It's next month, next June or July, it will be going into seed. The seed pods are already there, and if you got it, pull it.
Okay, anything else, any other horticultural news or anything?
This will be like pulling up purple loosestrife and
It's time to plant in tomatoes.
lots of luck.
Okay, so let's move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the Town Center Water System Options Committee. David, do you want to read the proposed charge, or maybe Roger, you want to do that, or?
You want me to read it?
Yeah, well, let's let,
I'll read it and then you comment. What?
2104.
End
The year.
wrong date, year at the end.
Oh, at the top, the very top.
this is 100
Just a
years.
typo.
Yeah.
Okay.
The charge for this committee was going to be, the members were going to be jointly appointed between the Board of Selectmen and the Water Commission. The charge was to provide the town with technical and financial options for adding public water and/or wastewater systems for the town center. Coordinate with the planning board for projections on development scenarios, district boundaries, revenue enhancement, and siting alternatives. Coordinate with the Board of Health on health issues and regulations. Coordinate with the Conservation Commission on use of town land, and with the Board of Selectmen on legal issues. Public input is required. It is desired to have a draft presentation by November 2014 and a formal report by February 2015.
Okay. Do you want to comment, Roger, on any of the, maybe some of the background and what we're doing?
As most of us know, there's been a lot of studies about water, wastewater, and that sort of thing downtown. We haven't pulled the whole thing together. We've done some technical stuff, but we really haven't filled out the implications about development, cost to homeowners if they happen to be involved in the system and that sort of thing. And we put together a list of people, Mike and I, that we have nominated here. We have 3 of the 4 towns' environmental engineers, or maybe others, but we got Frank Hess at the Pine Hill School, the last guy to actually successfully complete a project to get the emergency road in to the school. Ed Rose, the president of the Business Association. Grace Shepard, who brings a lot of background in the town as a prior selectman and many years on the metropolitan planning area, and myself. So.
And that's the group that attended the meeting, I think,
Right.
a week or 2 ago, right?
Right.
And were there any other expressions of interest? I know, David, last week you asked if anyone was interested. Did you get any expressions of interest?
No.
I would like to reach out to the town somehow and tell them this is going on. We want to have some public meetings after we get some information together to see what people think. So we'll try to recruit some more people, at least get them on the mailing list.
Okay.
Would you change this is an even number of committee members, would you add 1 to make it 9 and broaden it a little bit, perhaps? Is that something you'd consider if you could find somebody?
That'd be fine if we
Sure.
find somebody.
That would work for you?
Yeah.
Part of my concern is that pretty much everybody on this committee is of the same mind. And for this to be truly successful, it's got to go to town meeting. It's going to have a fairly wide base of support. And so you may be better off with a little more diversity on the committee rather than a group that already thinks pretty much the same.
I agree with you, but, you know, most of us are engineers and narrow-minded, so that's where the list came from. But people who know what's going on there, we would certainly welcome other people to attend. As I said, I'd like to reach out to other people.
I think you'd be surprised at the diversity of opinions in terms of what's feasible and what
Yeah.
could be done or how it could be done. I think there's a lot of diversity of opinion.
Right.
I agree with you, Paul. I don't think there's anybody on there who is adamant against the idea of a water supply for the center of town. I think, in fact, most of the people on there, or maybe everybody on there, thinks that that would be a good thing if we could figure out how to do it in a cost-effective way and in a way that is feasible from an engineering standpoint and so forth, but with no sense that there's already an agreement in terms of where and how. I suppose there might be some value in adding somebody who's a skeptic. I don't know.
Well, if you increase it to 9, you have an open slot for another
Skeptic
citizen.
slot.
And that could be the skeptic citizen. But even still, just reading the charge, it's not like they're charged with, you're exploring options and what would be involved if ever water or sewer was to be provided to the downtown district, basically. It's
And
not that you're-
hopefully with some reasonable estimate of what a homeowner might have to pay to get into the game.
No, I understand, but it's more of in educating, the committee educating itself what the possibilities are,
Right.
and then being able to educate the rest of us
Right.
by virtue of a draft presentation, in November and a formal report by February, which would be available should there be some action to be taken at town meeting. But
Yeah.
that's going further down the road than I think the charge is really, thinking of town meeting. We're not even talking about that at this stage. It really is more, here's what's possible, here's what would be involved for what's possible, and here's what's not possible. Or here's, if you want option A, it's 3 times the cost. If you want no option, that's where the skeptics. So all I'm saying is that even if they're of like mind, and I don't know many engineers like lawyers, I don't know any that are of like mind when you put them together.
They're all crazy.
So I'm not worried about, I look at this list and, you take each one. Just looking at the, Mike volunteering to participate here, that's perfect for his skill set brought to bear on this topic.
Yeah.
And you can take that for each one of these individuals, including you, of course, because you brought this to us several months back. I think it's a great list.
Okay. Yeah, and I think one of the thoughts we had was this goes beyond the past efforts to study the problem or investigate, a well location or things like that. It's really the next step to try to put a plan together. Not, obviously it's nothing the committee can do on its own. It would need board support from all the boards and town meeting support if we were to get that far, but to try to figure out what would be a feasible program to approach the town with, or a series of options, as Roger had suggested, to approach the town with. There's a lot of thought, Peter, and I'm sure you've heard it, and you've heard it too, that if we're going to do anything to increase the tax base in the center of town in particular, the only way that can be done is with water and/or sewer. And so, if we're going to just talk about it, nothing's going to happen. We have to actually be ready to try to take the next step.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. I get all that, and I think that's important, because you can count on 6 hands how many years' worth of discussion we ought to look into bringing sewer and water to the downtown district. Here, what you've just described, and what this charge is describing, is to take some further action, really move the ball forward. I think that's great. I think we need it, particularly given just what what everybody says, if we're going to ever develop.
And,
What's restricting us?
If by New Year's Eve or something like that, it looks like there's something feasible, financially sound, then we would have to approach the town for the next phase, which would be some serious engineering study to see if our estimates are reasonable.
And to make us eligible for state money, if
Right.
there is state money.
Yeah.
And I think you've got some oars in the water in terms of trying to figure that process out also.
Yeah, I'm talking to Linsky about some recent legislation that looks like it left off new construction for water systems off,
Okay.
but wastewater systems are probably on, and I'm going to see him on the 9th to talk about that.
Okay.
Well, just a technicality of how one does this joint appointment. Now, remember, we got caught on a technicality of appointing someone to your committee.
That was because it was replacing an elected
An elected
official.
official,
That's
right. So
much
we got
more
called
stringent.
out, we had to have both committees together. The question is whether we need that for what we're trying to do tonight, because you've probably already taken a vote on your water commission
Yeah.
for this group?
Okay.
Okay, so then we're just
That should be okay.
doing what we're going to do to supplement to hold our end of the joint appointing process. Good. I just don't want to
I-
get caught on that technicality.
I would recommend, if we're going to vote, that we leave me off so I can vote, and then do a separate vote on my appointment, which I will recuse myself from, because I don't think I can vote on appointing myself.
Okay. Paul, I just want to be sensitive to Paul's concerns.
You want to say a total of 9, and here are the 8 of them, sort of thing?
Well, I was thinking, why don't we do 7 now, and then when you got a pair, add 2. I'm hesitant about setting up a 4-for-4 split. Technically, legally, if a motion is made and 4 support it and 4 oppose it, like the advisory committee had a recommendation on an article, it was 4 in favor and 4 against, it ends up, you have nothing. and all
Well,
that
but
work.
Well, you're
Well,
going to
we
have two opinions. And
We have committees with of varying sizes where we have vacancies, and we make appointments regardless of the fact that we're not filling the whole committee. So I'd be uncomfortable excluding, who do you not put in there on this list? I can't think of anybody I would consider excluding at this stage of the game. So I'd like you to reconsider that. I appreciate what you're saying, but that's a problem for that committee to deal with if they're 4 for 4 on something. They're not voting on anything of significance at this stage. They're trying to get going and get going on a time frame here that's fairly aggressive, I would say, to be real smart about these issues. So I just soon see this group rolling along here as quickly as possible in an official capacity. And I think that's why we're here tonight, right?
Do you have any suggestions on who would be the ninth member, or even where they would be drawn from, or?
Well, going back to my earlier comment, I would like to see us getting to the point where there's consensus in the town, so that when we go to town meeting, it's not going to be a huge fight. And so it makes sense to engage those who have fought this in the past. I mean, there was something like this on a warrant a year or two ago.
Yeah.
And lost. And so whoever those people were who were opposing it, wouldn't it make sense to include them so that part of the process would be to negotiate, in essence, with them and come to something that they wouldn't oppose. And so we can actually get something done and not come up with something that's going to provoke a disagreement in the community.
Yeah, I mean, what I hear you saying, Paul, and I'm not sure tell me if I'm not hearing you correctly, that if there was a skeptic, as we called it before, somebody who has been against the idea of watering or sewering any part of town or the center of town, that would be helpful in forming a consensus. I'm not sure that's true, and I'm not sure the kind of consensus you'd come up with would be one that you could put in front of town meeting that would result in a water committee. I had some experience on the tree study committee, as Kitty did too, and some others, and that was explicitly a compromise. It was a balanced committee with me in the middle, I think, and we ended up coming up with a policy which was explicitly a compromise, but it wasn't a situation where we were asking the town to affirmatively do something. And here you'd want to be asking the town to do something, I think.
Well, if we're going to build a public infrastructure there, it's going to involve borrowing money, even if there's state grants, it's local match and all of that.
It's going to need town meeting approval.
It's going to need town meeting approval. So I'm saying the earlier you can get buy-in from abutters and whoever opposed, I'd have to go back to the town meeting records to see who.
I feel like you're on the next step, Paul. I feel like in order to get to that point, there has to be something to react to. And the point of this committee would be to develop what it is people would be reacting to. It's not that we're going to come up with any kind of engineered drawings, but we're going to come up with a menu or a proposed approach, and then get that. And obviously, there are public meetings. People are welcome to come to those meetings and weigh in. And the idea of a ninth member is great if we can figure out who wants to do it. David didn't get any feedback, but maybe there's something.
We intend to interview all the business establishments and find out what their attitudes are and what their investment is already in the sewer business in particular. Try to get their opinion about what they think they want, and probably talk to a bunch of residents that would potentially wind up in this district and try to get them interested. Maybe
Should the ninth seat be potentially a resident of the district? Is that a thought on that?
Yeah, could be.
Does that cover what you were trying to do?
Well, again, I'm in favor of a vibrant downtown district. I think it would help us with taxes. It would also provide more services to our residents,
Right.
so that they can shop Sherborn rather than go to other towns. So I'm in favor of a vibrant downtown. I'm just concerned that, given the history of this town and of this issue in particular, because I think I've been talking about this issue for 20 years or
Yeah,
more.
I'm sure you have.
And in order for it to go someplace, I'm not sure that having, well, this is your committee, I'll go with whatever you want.
I think the alternative is the water commissioners just do it, because there are elected water commissioners, and they could take on this charge, and the rest of us could just sit in the room and listen to them, and any other members of the public could listen to them. I think Roger was looking for more of a team effort on that, and by involving other people, I think he gets that. Kitty, you had a thought on this?
One comment I'd like to make is that Mike will be sitting on the committee. You make selectmen's reports as part of your meetings. Would this not be a time to, after every meeting, Mike would report? You might stir the pot out there to get people
Right.
that think the idea is crazy, get them down to the meetings and get them as part of the discussion. So I
That's
think,
fine.
Yeah.
I think that might be an easier way of doing it.
We'll try to set up some open meetings in a few months when we have a little bit of information.
Right.
The good thing is this committee has no authority to actually do anything, so.
They work the best.
And good or bad, we'll probably get SOS involved. They're really good. They've got a huge mailing list.
Got some good workers too.
Well, and you know, there's planning board representation, I guess, in the form of Eric, but they just did a study, a survey.
Right.
So we'll have survey information on how receptive people might be to, you know, either one of those ideas in concept. All right, so do we have any?
Well, again, this is your committee, I'm following your lead on this. So,
I'm happy to go with this, make it a 9-member committee, so we have a vacancy in addition to this list. And
So we'll
move forward with that. So I'll just read the text here with a friendly amendment. I move that the Town Center Water System Options Committee be comprised of 9 members and formed for the purpose of fulfilling the above charge as set forth by the Board of Selectmen and the Water Commission, and do hereby appoint the following officials and people to the committee: Water Commissioner Darrell Beardsley, Water Commissioner Brian Moore, Water Commissioner Roger Demler, School Interest Frank Hess, Business Interest Ed Rose, Planning Interest Eric Johnson, Citizen Group Interest Grace Shepard, Citizen Group or resident of the district to be named, yet to be named.
did you put a term in
Let's do this for a year.
For 1 year period ending
Could be extended to 1 year.
May 31st, 2015.
Okay.
there? Second.
All in favor?
You're okay with this?
Yes, I am.
Well, I want you on this committee, so
We
I
did
don't
the-
want you to
we
bow
did
out
the-
after we do
we did
this.
the-
Yeah.
We should have voted him first,
Yeah.
so that we're sure he's
You wouldn't have
there.
had a committee to put it on. Okay, so all in favor? All right, okay.
Secondly, I move that Michael Jaimo be elected as appointed as the selectman's representative on this.
Second.
All in favor?
And I'm abstaining. Even though that's
And that's-
acceptable to me. Okay, good.
That's great. Good group.
So what's our next, I guess next we've got a town administrator report. Thanks,
Good
Roger.
job, Roger.
And so Roger, you'll set the next meeting at some point, or we'll discuss when that could be?
9th,
June 9th, okay.
7 o'clock.
So 7 o'clock, June 9th in
Police station.
Police station? Okay.
Okay, I'll move my meeting.
Oh, you already have a meeting there?
No, I haven't signed up for
Okay.
it yet, but we'll move to another place.
I haven't asked for it yet.
Well,
I better hurry. Diane, can you do that?
June 9th at some location.
yeah, okay, we'll get to that. I'll move it.
Great. So David, you've got some things to, is your voice okay? You want Paul to read that, or?
No, I'm good. I want to do, under the town administrator report, just say that, a reminder that the Brewfest is Friday night, May 30th, 6:30. The Downtown Business Association asked if we could announce that.
Okay.
Peter Caruso is speaking at the high school graduation on Tuesday, June 5th.
Hooray!
Yeah, I better come up with my speech.
And Michael, you're speaking to the Council on Aging next Friday morning.
Friday the 6th, yeah. I think it's Thursday the 5th for the graduation, right? And
Yes.
and Friday the 6th.
Oh, Thursday the 5th,
Right,
yes.
Friday the 6th for me.
At Council on Aging. right
Council on
here.
Aging in this room.
And then I just wanted to caution people about using East Goulding until we straighten out that situation. But we have been talking with the CM&D director about it, and I'll touch base with him first thing in the morning on those pictures.
So we're
All
going to
fixed.
caution people about using it, but we haven't closed it. I mean, I did talk to Ed today, and he told me he didn't think it needed to be closed, but I think,
Right, I believe all three of them were there, CM&D director,
Fire.
police chief, and
somebody from the
That's
fire
Headstone.
department? Okay.
And they had, they deemed that it was passable until,
Okay. And it was the fire chief there, or?
I don't believe the fire chief was there. Let me,
I mean, that's kind of a separate question, whether fire trucks can go over it. I guess it's also a question for this, for the schools, whether the school buses should be going over that. I don't know if there's a weight limit on those
those plates.
plates or not, but somebody ought to figure that out.
So you might want to just give a heads up to the superintendent, if he doesn't know already about that
Right.
road, and he might want to redirect the buses in some fashion.
I mean, I have faith that Ed is communicating something to both the chief and the school department, but I want to check.
But I got the same report, Mike, from Ed and the police chief, that they were out there and it seemed suitable for traffic. Otherwise, the police chief thought, if it was unsafe, he wouldn't be allowing traffic to go.
There was a Sherborn cleanup day a couple of weeks ago, and Pat Casella thanked people for showing up at Farm Pond. Well, we have the list from the CM&D director about participants that day, so I wanted to thank them for their activities that they did that day. Sorry. Polly Leland Meyer, Jeannie Guthrie, Susan Tyler, Marion Nutra, Carol McGarry, Rosemary Driscoll, and Bill Seymour, Scott Embry, Tom Hunt, and Rick Calixto. And then for CM&D employees, Warren Donnelly, Henry Rojas, Dennis O'Neill, Bob Balboni, and Ed was there as well, and about 20 bags were collected throughout the different areas of town.
Thank you, all those
That's fantastic.
people who help make Sherborn cleaner. We all benefit from that.
The next item is the appointment vacancies. So this is the list of seats that are up for reappointment or existing vacant seats. So we're going to be advertising all those, and it's the bottom half of this page is the boards and the committees. The top half I'll bring to our next meeting so you can handle those appointments of routine staff appointments. If I could, I'll read off the list of.
I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, okay. For boards and committees, the vacant upcoming seats are Agricultural Commission, Bay Circuit Greenbelt Rep, Board of
Do
Appeals.
you want to say the number of seats that are open on each one, David, or?
Sure. Agricultural Commission, 4 seats available. Bay Circuit Greenbelt Rep, 1 seat available. Board of Appeals, 2 seats available. Cable TV Advisory, 4 seats available. Conservation Commission, 3 open. Council on Aging, 2 open. Disability Advisory Committee, 3 seats open. Elder Housing, 4 seats open. Elderly and Disabled Taxation Committee, 1 seat open. Energy Committee, 5 seats open.
David, just to give you a break here in your voice a little bit, just to clarify, when we're saying 5, just because I want to be stupid here a little bit, when we're saying 5, we may have incumbents who are already, we may already have 5 incumbents who may or may not have expressed interest in re-upping. It isn't that we're completely bereft of
Right.
people on that committee when we say we have 5 vacancies. Okay.
These seats are currently existing vacant or somebody,
Somebody's
a
in
suit
there
that's
now.
out for reappointment.
Up for reappointment. I know you said that earlier, I just wanted to reinforce it.
Okay.
You're
Farm
at
Pond,
Farm.
okay, Farm Pond Advisory Committee, 2 seats. Groundwater Protection Advisory, 2 seats. Historical Commission, 6 seats. Historic District Commission, 6 seats. Local Emergency Planning Committee, 7 seats. MBTA Advisory Board, 1 seat. Open Space Committee, possibly up to 7 seats. Personnel Committee, 3 seats. Recycling Committee, 4 seats. Revenue Development Committee, 3 seats. Sherborn Arts Council, 5 seats. Town Forest Committee, 1 seat. Traffic Safety, 7 seats. Western Avenue Intersection Committee, 7 seats. And Wildlife Management Advisory Committee, 7 seats. And we've sent out letters to all those people who are up for reappointment, and we've asked them to get back to us by June 6th, and we've also sent letters to each of the committee chairs.
Are all these
Let us know.
committees standing committees, David, or are some of these committees expiring? I know there are several of these committees we talked in the past about eliminating or consolidating, or their work may have been completed.
Yeah, I mean, the Western Avenue Intersection Committee is task-oriented for one specific purpose. But
But to follow up to Mike's, because we had several months back, had gone over some committees to consider sunsetting or combining with other committees. And we also have had multiple discussions, but I hope we can nail down what we might do on this overarching public safety committee, which I think is a good idea. So I hope when we discuss the appointments and have more detail in front of us, that we allow for discussing and making decisions or deciding not to make decisions on sunsetting some of the, one or more of these, as well as this public safety committee.
so maybe at the next meeting, we could approve the charge for the Public Safety Committee?
If in fact we all want to go down that
Consider it.
road. Yeah,
I guess I would suggest that when you're contacting the chairs of these committees,
Right.
that you not make any promises that
No, we
they're
made it
still
clear.
in existence.
Yeah.
Some of them.
And we've also, I mean, we did not mean to offend anybody by the way that we've told them, you know, don't take it for granted that you're going to be reappointed, but we made it as easy as possible for them to express interest in being considered again.
Well, I meant it at the next level, which is on some of these committees where we've talked about consolidating or eliminating them. You know, we don't want to make a representation that the committee's been rolled over if it hasn't been.
Right, right. And I don't think any of, off the top of my head, I don't think any of these we had talked about sunsetting yet.
I remember there was some schedule you had
But
put
the
together.
Wildlife Committee
or
and
a
the
couple of
Western
things.
Avenue Committee and the Traffic Safety, well, Traffic Safety was a one that the bylaw created, right?
That's right, yeah.
But the other two were not, and we talked
Right.
about somehow enveloping
Bundling
them.
them, yeah.
Downstairs on the Selectmen's reading desk is a proposed plan for,
Whitney Street and
intersections.
Western Ave, yeah.
that this committee has come up with. And I don't know what the process is, but it sounds like they're pretty close to doing something.
Right, and if they're going to make a recommendation, it doesn't make sense maybe to disband them, but at some point that whole process kind of has to come to an end. It's been
Right,
going on forever.
right.
Well, the other thing, we did take action on a couple of committees where we converted them into advisory committees to you.
Right. There were a couple of defunct committees
That's a
that,
good approach, because people could still be involved in that, but not have to be an official committee reporting to Board of Selectmen.
right, such as the lot next door.
Yes,
We
yeah.
could do one for the drainage in the playing fields and do a committee on that.
What a great idea. Why don't we add it to the charge of the committee we just created?
No, not that.
Water.
There you go.
Yeah.
Pat, you got a thought?
Yeah, slight correction on the Farm Pond Advisory Committee. There are 2 people up, incumbents, and there's also an abutter that we still haven't filled that position, so there are 3 seat vacancies.
So there's 3 openings.
There's 3 openings on that committee.
Just while we're on the committees, and this is a whole bunch of volunteers doing a whole bunch of, providing a lot of value added to the community here for $0, and the town would not run without all these groups. So I got a free lunch today at the Council on Aging volunteer luncheon. Paul was there and we talked boats. We didn't talk anything else because we weren't posted. But somebody came up to me and suggested that we ought to do something like that, an appreciation luncheon or something for all of these various committees. I thought it was a terrific idea. And this person, I'm not going to give him credit because he's otherwise a thorn in our sides quite often. No, he's a really good guy. It was George Shea. He made the suggestion that we might want to submit a grant to the Sherborn Business Association for that. I was like, there's somebody, those are two great ideas coming out of
Yeah,
our
that's good.
favorite George Shea.
That's excellent. Good-
So, anyway, I just
good
wanted,
ideas.
while we're on this topic, I threw it
Yeah.
out there for
Well,
something for us to consider.
Make two comments. First, it was an honor and a privilege to be at the Council on Aging luncheon where they had these sheets of names of volunteers who have been assisting our senior citizens. And I tried to do a rough count, and it looked like more than 200 people have been pitching in to help our senior citizens. So while it was great that they had a luncheon for them to show their appreciation, I think we as a Board of Selectmen, and in fact the whole community, owes a lot of thanks and praise to those 200 or more. I mean, I didn't count them all, but it just went on and on and on, columns of names of people who are trying to help our seniors. That's really what Sherborn is about. That's the kind of Sherborn that I love, that helps people, fosters, cares, and is dependable when needed. Truly a wonderful thing.
Well, I'm with you on that 100%. I think this suggestion by George might also help us recruit some people when they know there's going to be a free lunch.
Well, my other point was that we've tried that in the past.
Oh, we have, yeah.
And the last time we tried it, the question of cost came up
Sure.
as to how to pay for it. And so all the selectmen were each going to contribute a sum. And the proposal at that time was $300 for total, and each selectman contribute $100. And by the time you try to figure out the timing, the placing, the venue, with June and graduation, people going away, then we're into September, then we're into all kinds of other things that were going on. The appointment process was over. It didn't work. It just logistically didn't work. So it's an idea that comes to the surface every couple of years. It's a great idea to have a summer barbecue for all the town volunteers. Wonderful idea. I'd be happy to go. I'd even be happy to contribute to the cost of it if somebody wants to find the venue, set up
That's what we
picnic
have Diane
tables.
for,
There's a
isn't
nice
it?
farm down by the Charles River. You know that place?
Yeah, there's a
a
great-
nice farm down by the
yeah,
Charles River.
great
That
views.
would be a fantastic venue.
Yeah,
It's got the views
Fresh
are
beef.
beautiful.
yeah. Yeah. Touchy-feely, the cows, be fun.
Load the manure hovering overhead.
Kitty, you got something?
Just a suggestion, you've got a great place in your town report. You could list all the volunteers, what it all cost you, the paper and the printing. The other place you might be able to get is the local paper to do a little thing and to mention the people, and therefore not cost the members of your board.
Well, on the first idea, that was something that was talked about, and it turns out if you look at the town report, all these committees provide a report. So if you want to know, if you're just picking one randomly, the recycling committee, when you go to the town report, there's a report from the recycling committee, and it says not only who the volunteers are, but what they've done during the year, what they've accomplished, what they're working on, and then there's an opportunity to volunteer to join any of these things that people are reading about in the town report.
Or the other idea could be to ask Jeannie if, when she sends out the request for our annual reports, that we include a paragraph acknowledging volunteers that would not necessarily show up in our report. just trying to save you money.
Okay. What's next, David?
We wanted to look at a review of outstanding items, and basically that's a list of things that have been brought up at some point, but have not considered complete. So some of the items, we don't know how high the priority is, or if they've already been taken care of, or if they're still need to come back to the selectmen. Also, a number of the items after the town meeting article on the town administrator job description, several of the policies that have anything to do with the personnel admin plan, I can implement on my own without needing to bring to the selectmen. Because I consider them regulations of carrying out items in that personnel plan. So I don't know how you wanted to go through this, or if you wanted to go through each item and update it, or have the selectmen take time to look at it and bring it back to another meeting.
Has everybody looked at it? People have thoughts
Yeah,
on
no,
this?
I've looked at it. I think it's great to, I'd ask Diane to pull this together, and so it's good to have a to-do list and just keep it updated, that's all. A couple items missing would be the Public Safety Committee, which we just talked about, is something we ought to get at. There was the effort, call them 2 Harley Kaplan initiatives. One was the Affordable Housing Plan. I think David and Gino were going to get together. Maybe you had that on the list and I missed it, but that would be something we just don't want to lose sight of at some point. And likewise, he's coming to you, David, with revenue ideas or something.
Yeah.
He did a public comment thing at one of the recent meetings.
I believe planning was picking up on the housing plan, and
Okay.
they've discussed that at a couple of meetings. Harley Kaplan is scheduled for June 12th to come into that meeting.
Which
but
we
we'll be
are moving,
rescheduling.
so we have to reschedule.
Right. So I just didn't know when.
But we left
when
him to work
contact.
with you first on
Right.
whatever he's doing. Okay, good.
David, this list have anything on it that was completed, or is there a list of the things that were completed that used to be on this list?
There are things completed in here. Like Thomas Gibson, Middlesex Retirement Board.
Yeah.
He's got
He
things
came-
done.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
I'm not sure if you were on the board then or not, but at some point we had him here and he did a presentation and it was PowerPoint. all that.
Water Study
right.
Committee.
But if you want to talk, Mike, if you want to talk priorities, for example.
Yeah.
Third down there, active committee meetings with the BOS. I think we just got to be more disciplined and work harder at getting these committees in to meet with us. And life gets in the way here, we get into budget cycles and town meeting, everything seems to bump things. But I think if we can be real focused, and I was the worst offender, but if we could try to be more diligent about getting groups in here, because I think we certainly find it rewarding, as do the committee members.
Yeah.
So I put a star next to that one.
But you're proposing it for the year 2024, and that's the part that kind of threw me. Because he's in...
I didn't,
he's in the
Diane's
20
proposing that. That's
24th
Diane.
century.
Diane's got
And
this
now
funny...
you're in the
I have a problem with numbers. I like to
She's
reverse.
not a numbers person.
I mean, we have done,
That's a good idea, we should set up that schedule.
and over the last year, I think we
got a bunch
pulled a
in.
lot more
Yeah,
in.
it hadn't been done before very frequently, so we...
But we could put them on like a routine
Yeah,
schedule when they
I think
know
that'd be good.
when to come in and.
And it allows people, for example, you take Concom, they came in, that was great to have them here. I hear people there's myths about the positions that Concom takes on various things, that I'm a believer in facts, so it's good to have people come in and tell you what they're doing and so forth, that's all. I think the health plan analysis discussion, gets a star in my thing here about the GIC and whether that's something even though it's a taboo subject, it's a subject we ought to talk about because it's real money opportunity there.
I think we had council coming in at one point and we
Yeah.
bumped them
Yeah,
to later.
so that got bumped, I think we should put that. So a lot of the stars are things that are holdovers for when I was a slacker up here. Townwide fees, on the next page, we have review of townwide fees.
Yeah, that would
You
be
can
a
almost
priority.
miss that, but that's an important one, because I think,
Yeah, that's at the top, I see what you're saying, that's at the
yeah,
top of
it's
that.
hard to, I almost missed that one.
Some of this stuff is not necessarily selectmen
Right.
to-dos either, David. I mean, some of it is TA or TA staff. But, like the telecommunications review, we should figure out how to get that done
Right.
and do it.
No, we did bring in somebody outside and met with them, and they made some recommendations that we haven't carried out yet.
But you see on that, when I was preparing and looking at this stuff, I looked through some old folders, see if there were any things to add to this and whatnot. And I came across, one time David had written a TA update, and he had written something for us, and it was very thorough. So it just made me think, it would be great to get from David a periodic, without being burdensome, a very brief, here's what he's been working on, so that we're not blindsided by a resident saying, geez, why do you have the 15-minute parking signs out front there? I didn't know, sorry, So it's
Right.
anything that you think would be valuable for us to have, even though we don't need to be involved, just to
Right.
keep us in the loop
I
would
think
be
we've
useful.
never been good at telling people what we've actually been doing or
Yeah,
have done.
I mean, you're,
And it takes time to log it, that's the only,
yeah, so if there can be a way of every couple, maybe once a month or every couple of weeks, that David gives us, here's what we've been working on in the office here, meeting with, I don't know what, and the issues, if you get resident concerns and complaints a lot, that we may not ever hear about, and until we run across the citizen to complain.
Yeah, they say what's going on.
Yeah.
What is the item move status?
The status of the office moves, I think, within the.
Yeah.
within
at one
this
point, I was making a recommendation about moving people around, and then I got the board's input on it, and I put it on hold.
So should that be on the list or not? Is that something you want to do or not?
I still consider it, but
So it
I
stays
don't
on,
know.
but it's not an active.
I don't know if that's something that's completely,
I think when David and I last talked about that in some detail, it had less attraction. The benefits of it didn't seem too high. Except, and what he was trying to accomplish was really, could be accomplished by maybe moving one or more individuals, as opposed to a bunch of offices moving around.
So have we done that?
Stay downstairs. No, that never happened. So
No.
I think that's a separate discussion, I think.
Well, just to kind of take these in order really quickly. The one-on-one meeting with commercial property owners, that looks like it was your idea.
That was a suggestion that David make make a concerted effort to have, coffee with or meet with the commercial property owners in the center of town, figure out what they're thinking, what their needs are,
And
and
would that be part of this new committee that we created?
the water committee.
Yeah.
I think they want to talk with them about water issues, but I think it may, maybe just a bigger item. We talked to the commercial owners less, I think.
I didn't do a one-on-one meeting with each
Okay.
owner, but I did go to the business association.
Okay. Well, that's a good start, and
And what about the zoning article? That didn't seem to work when...
nobody really wanted to own that one. I mean, that was one where we tried to get planning board, zoning board to own it, nobody wanted to own it, so I think it can stay on the list as an idea that we ought to be thinking about, but I don't think that's a priority at this point.
We talked about the active committees meeting with the Board of Selectmen, pending appointments.
We just talked about-
We just talked about workshops with the Board of Selectmen.
That's one of the things I wanted to talk about tonight, was trying to schedule a workshop session, either for a Thursday night or for some other time, if that's a better, on policies and goals, and sort of the annual session that we had last year, where we're not taking actual agenda items, but we're trying to figure out policy.
Then we have transfer station. references Peter Ver's email of September.
Well, does this have to do with the fix on the transfer station?
Yeah, I don't remember what that one's about, Diane. So it's just paving?
Well, page you throw is a separate one.
That's a separate one.
It says big picture planning and recycling. I think we may have been talking, we talked a lot last fall about what ended up being the warrant article
That's
for
right.
more money and getting that job done.
Yeah.
And I guess, that would be a priority this year to make sure that money's well spent and finished.
Right. Yes.
Yeah, I agree that that's a priority, getting the repavement done, the drainage done. But I recall we have to wait till July 1 on that, right?
July 1's coming up.
Yeah, it's coming up quickly. We did secure the engineer, and they've already given us their proposal.
Okay, so we're ready to jump in both feet July 1?
Yeah.
The page you throw, I mean, I think Peter had proposed that last year. I would like to see more movement on that. I don't know how you feel, Paul, but that would be something that's a revenue enhancement item. It's a wise use of town resources item.
Before you came on the board, we spent an awful lot of time dealing with the transfer station and some of the challenges and people coming in that maybe don't belong. and
Well,
all
we
that
still
sort
have
of
that
stuff.
issue, yeah.
We still have that issue, so the pay as you go. So I have this from another community, and so I thought I'd bring this as a prop and be carrying it around. So I
What's that
recycle
cost
a
you?
lot more because of this.
What'd that cost
You
you?
pay $80 and they give you a bunch of them. You pay $80 for the sticker and they give you 50 of them, and then you buy them in batches. I don't even know what it costs, but
Yeah,
you can stuff a lot in them. You recycle a lot more,
right.
and
I'm sure you bring bags home to throw in Sherborn's trash.
No, I use these. Yeah, no, I don't do that.
That's why we have to do page you throw.
That's right. But something like that solves a lot of the ills that we have spent a lot of time discussing. So yes, I think we should
Well, why don't we
continue that
task the
discussion.
recycling committee to take a look at this, do some
Well, if
analysis?
Carol's willing to do that, that's,
I think they're very much, already had discussion.
We had already talked about having them talk about it, which
Yeah.
they did, and they were,
I think what we need is sort of similar to, some of the other issues we've brought here. Other towns are doing this. There are models out there. Let's just find a model that works. Maybe it's Situate, maybe it's
Yeah, right,
someplace else.
right.
And just throw together a proposal. What would it look like if Sherborn did it? And we have a discussion and decide whether to bring it to town meeting.
you don't need to bring it to
All
town.
right, then we decide whether we do
It
it on a
goes
trial
into the
basis.
fee discussion as well.
Okay.
It's part of that.
I mean, we could, if it made sense, we could do it on a trial basis and see how it worked and then see about implementing it.
And Board of Selectmen goals we just talked about, the financial story,
We did that.
You did that.
okay, health plan we talked about, personnel evaluations are pretty important, and I believe by contract,
By bylaw, they're required.
but by contract, we need to do
Yes.
David's.
Yeah.
And to do David's, we need to measure him against goals that we're supposed to set up for him. Have we set up goals for him?
We talked about it briefly some time ago, but I don't think we set anything up beyond.
Last November that we talked about setting goals, but nothing was
We got waylaid on,
set.
we got too far into the weeds, I think, is what we talked about. We got talking about how we should set goals, individual goals, and so we never got back to his.
But as chair, did you set any?
No,
We could use as metrics?
No, but you recall, we have in his contract, his job description, which included the mailer, or the piece, the marketing piece that the Collins Group had put out, that was incorporated in the contract, in the job description. So that there alone is something to look at if you wanted to. Otherwise, we also, I only recently saw the evaluation form that the town official in the town uses.
But just in fairness to David, we should be measured against goals that he thought he was supposed to be doing,
Yeah,
rather than saying to him, well, you never swept out the boathouse at the farm pond, and if we hadn't made it a goal, it wouldn't be fair to evaluate him on that. So we
Yeah.
really need to have a process by which we we set out goals that are achievable and then evaluate them, but I think we have to do an evaluation of them soon. So I'm not sure how we can set goals and do an evaluation.
Well, again, I guess I defer back to the job description as the.
Yeah, well, it sounds like that's all we have at this point. So maybe something on here would be to set TA goals. That's, I mean, I think
Yeah, that's
something
what
else we
it
have to
is,
do,
yeah.
is set TA goals. We haven't done it before.
But then on top of that, there are all the evaluations of all of the town officials.
I mean, do you have a calendar on those, David, and where are we on those?
Yeah, there's, I
You gave us a
thought-
recent update on that,
Yeah.
yes.
Um,
Because we know we're required under the town bylaws for each employee supposed to be,
Right.
have a personal evaluation
Which
between whatever date and whatever
hasn't been
date.
done in a couple of
Yeah, I
years.
know, Council.
There's only one official that hasn't been reviewed, that has never been reviewed, and has a multi-year contract that I need to talk to you guys about. But other than that,
Well,
Yeah,
how are you
evaluation.
setting these up, David?
well, we first notified all the departments what they were supposed to, what form they were going to be using, and then to report back to us once they were complete.
So you're having the director level folks do the, or whoever manages the department,
Of the people in their
do the people in
department.
their department, and then you're
Yes.
doing the managers? Is that
Yes.
what you're doing? Are you done with all the managers?
But the manager's under the Board of Selectmen, not the,
I understand,
yeah, and then I follow up with the committees, the individual committees, like the assessors, to make sure that they had completed an
The
evaluation.
ones that have their own
Right.
structure.
And they maintain those?
They maintain those in their department, and I think, I'm pretty sure it says in the personnel admin plan that they're to retain the
Yeah.
personnel records in their department.
Okay, so where are we in terms of the, I mean, I think we can only really have any oversight of things within our departments, and then the ones that you have to do, and the ones that the managers have to do. So where are we with those?
They're all done.
They're all done, okay.
Yeah, I mean, it
You said
was,
there's one person who hasn't been done? That's
Right.
not a selectman department, or it is?
it is a selectman department,
Okay.
but it's a contracted employee, so I need to talk more, I'll talk
Okay.
more offline with you about it.
Okay, but that's something that's scheduled or could be scheduled?
Could be scheduled.
Okay.
No,
It'd be great to get those done by July 1 and then get back on a calendar to do them, whenever the next cycle is.
Yeah, I think the personnel admin plan says that they're supposed to be done by September 30th.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how,
Well, were they done by September 30th last year?
they were not done by September
And
30th.
so when have these been done over the winter?
I think we wrapped them up in like January, February. I mean, it was a
Alright, so-
longer process, but it hadn't been done.
So maybe we should hit September 30th this year and
That's right.
we just set a calendar up now for September to
Yeah.
just get them done.
Yeah, no, I think it will be done fine this year.
It says between August 1st and September 30th, all employees of the town shall be evaluated.
So I mean, let's get back on schedule and.
Right,
You
right.
know, and I think the only way to do that is to calendar it now so everybody knows it's coming.
Yeah,
Okay, so that's a to-do calendar, personnel evaluations.
So review of debt issue between town and region.
Yeah, that goes back, I asked David to get smart about that and find out where we're at. Algonquin schools, Southborough and Northborough, had the same debt issue. Not that I'm trying to cause any rift with the communities, but, it's just that they went to court and there was a decision made, and I don't know which town was which and whose decision was favorable, but they had the same issues that we were dealing with, that prior to my coming on the board decided to put it on hold. It was just curious to find out what happened in the other town, whether there was anything that we need to worry about, given statutes of limitation and so forth. And I don't know what.
And the issue is what, allocation?
That was, I don't remember, there was an issue of the debt and the way the state reimbursed the regional school for the construction they did some time ago. And there was a whole bunch of work done by prior town council here for Sherborn. And their conclusion was that there was a $900,000 difference that was, so and there was efforts made with the two communities to work something out, but it just didn't pass both towns. You know, it didn't pass Dover's town meeting to a solution that was worked out many years ago. So it's a very old issue, but it came to trial and court and settled or.
In Southborough.
In Southborough and Westborough.
Could I suggest that we get a copy of that decision and send it to the
Yeah.
board to start off with, and maybe the town council?
Town council has reviewed it. I pulled all the documents together and met with Chris Brown a couple of times. I just sent him recently another email saying, is there anything you have to update on this? And it's probably something that we should have in an executive session. And-
Okay, so let's schedule an
discuss.
executive session for that.
So,
And I'm not trying to cause any problems between us and our favorite sister town.
But it will be the subject of your graduation speech.
Yeah.
You're going to talk, and then you're going to talk about that,
Yeah,
right?
and after having served on the contract, the teacher's contract as well, I probably ought not to go there.
I can say that it was not, this council's review wasn't as rosy as the previous council.
Okay, well, that's good to know, too.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, I think we need to have this discussion.
well, but the important thing is if there's been a court case, court decision reached, what does that teach us about, I mean, some of us are up to speed on this from the past, and now.
This predates me, but I think Peter's comment about statute of limitations got my attention. I mean, if we've got
6 years
rights that
statute.
we're sitting on, that's not a good idea. So we should figure that out.
So I would like to see a copy of the decision, in addition to what we're doing with town council.
Deadline dates inserted into financial policies.
Yeah, what is that all about?
That was just to add the goals of, for the town account for free cash in the audit, I think.
So that's going back to that old, previously drafted financial policies of the Board of Selectmen. And there were some dates in there, I think you were trying to make sure those,
Yeah,
firming
that
up those
didn't work so
dates.
well.
Yes.
That brings up the issue of, we really need to get our free cash number earlier than we did, and most of my towns get it pretty early, and we're well down the road. We're in January, February, I'm trying to remember what date the free cash was certified here.
It was,
That's a little earlier than
it was
years
4 months
past.
earlier than
Yeah.
years past.
Yeah, but still not.
3 months
in accordance with
more.
what our objective was, which I think was October
October,
or something.
right.
And that issue is based on when we submit and also how quickly revenue turns it around.
I think it was more, yeah, but I think more how, when we got to submit the number.
Okay.
Yeah, so we need to work harder and faster on that.
It would be worth a while to plan this year, to figure out what we should be doing to help the process along so that it gets done quicker. Because if we knew going into the budget season and we have a huge free cash number, that's a big difference than if we have, at one town, that got a negative free cash number where you actually have to find money to bring your free cash to zero. So with huge swings that are possible, you want to know that stuff up front.
Yeah, so as part of that, in our free cash planning, we're coming up to the year end where the free cash is determined. So it begs the question, is there anything we should do now before year end to foster the growth of free cash? Because my gut tells me that we're not likely to see the same revenue surpluses and cost surpluses that we've seen in the past. Just, that's my sense, except for perhaps from the out-of-district spending, but everything else. So it begs the question whether we want to spend less in the next couple of months to help,
Do we have any turn backs?
to grow the turn backs more.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd be in favor of that, so to be ruthless about, geez, if we really don't need to spend it, let's not spend it. I've seen that done at the school, the region did that one year, about this time, and they came up with an extra $100,000 of.
And that's not the same as not paying your bills.
That's correct, that's just.
This year, you have to pay your bills this year on things
If
that
we
were.
don't really need it, can we live without it?
Right.
And we don't have a our past practice and our policy is not, if you didn't use your budget, you're gonna lose it. That, because people are otherwise fearful, they'll wanna use it if they're fearful of losing it. That's not how we operate, so I think it's more just prudent for us to generate free cash.
So, I mean, if
And throw that out there to keep alert.
Internal audit status. So we designed a system where there would be these random internal audits.
I think we never, the only answers we've ever gotten on that since I've been on the board.
Yeah,
We're working on it and we haven't quite gotten to it yet.
And we wanted a priority list so that we could review that to suggest, geez, you might want to spend your efforts somewhere else that might be more meaningful than whether the cash box of collections of farm pond stickers is working well. You know,
I think the town accountant, last time she was in, said that she had done some,
I thought she had a list of ones she was going to do. I
Yeah.
don't recall that she's done them. I mean, I might be wrong, but that's not how I recall that discussion. So I think it would be good to get that going and certainly get it going for next year. What offices had the greatest exposure of handling cash? That's really, it says your name.
listed as coming from me, but I don't recall a pressing need to address that issue.
Well, I think it was part of the discussion where we talked about money going into different places and whether there was a way to have some of this collecting consolidated, consistent with what Nancy tried to do with the legislation.
That's right.
And she did email, I think, probably all of us last week to say that that legislation did pass. There was the legislation that held up the town meeting article did pass, so maybe we're in a position to move forward with some of that, or maybe we need an article on the next town meeting. I don't know.
All right, but I don't see, with my name on here, I don't feel like
Oh, I believe
I've
you
been
always
charged
would.
with,
Yeah. No, you're not responsible for it, but you've always raised concerns about that. So,
Well,
for
I'm concerned
example,
about cash being accumulated in different locations.
take the transfer
and-
station and, you've raised, geez, how do we compare the cash that's come into the number of tires that we pay for disposing or washing machines?
And we talked about voucher systems where you couldn't spend money anyplace other than the selectman's office, and you get a voucher if you had to go to some other office and spend.
All right, I suppose just keep it on the list.
Well, one thing we could do is either David, you or an intern, best practices. What are we doing that's not best practices as far as collecting money, or what could we be doing that's best practices? I think when this came up the last time, I mentioned a system I thought they had in Weston where you could only pay one place and bring your receipt to someplace else if you needed to pick up a copy of something or pay for some other item.
Right, you'd have to go to the treasurer's office and pay if you were picking something up at the selectman's office. But
So I mean, that's, whether that's what we want to do here or not, but there are
Just not
probably better ways to do it.
If you're gonna drop something off at the transfer station that has a fee for, think like mattresses or whatever else, so you go there with your mattress, you're throwing it out, and you're just, you're told, oh, you owe $20, go down to the selectman's office, but it's Sunday afternoon at 2 o'clock.
That's right.
So do you take the mattress back? No, so you say, okay, well, we know you go to the selectmen's, but the person's working, doesn't go, and then what do? We sue them for $20 because they never pay?
There's always a way, there's always an exception to every rule, but I mean, I think we could have a policy that, would work. I don't know what it is. It may not involve mattresses on Sundays, but,
Throw it on the side of the road.
well, that's the demonstration.
On the date exact.
That's right.
All right, next
Any
one's,
When will the audit be completed? So that's done.
free cash number.
We talked about that.
What's the Board of Selectmen calendar?
in the operating procedures of the Board of Selectmen, there's supposed to be an annual calendar set.
For meeting days?
Meeting dates, right. So I had a draft one of those.
Okay.
that we talked about
Yep.
the workshop or something.
We talked about telecommunications.
Yeah, although I still think we need to do something just with the sheer number of bills we've got.
It's a big undertaking.
Is it big undertaking because we have to change contracts? Is that what it is, or?
No, just to get them to redo all the billing and wrap accounts under master headings. And
I think it's going to save us money. I mean, I think, even if it saves us $100 every 2 weeks, that's, it's money.
Yeah, it needs to be done, and bringing in this outside person to come in and actually look at the bills and get the same response that I thought, that there are a lot of bills here that could be reduced.
We have a lot of expertise in town on telecommunications stuff too. Maybe there's somebody in town who you could reach out to, or who might have some ideas on that.
Talked about review of town fees.
Capital planning.
Well, that's, it's got Giamo's name on it.
That was my name, yeah, no, I mean, the thought was to have a more comprehensive capital budget, the way we do for individual departments, and I know there's a capital budget committee that presumably has their eye on it. In fact, I think I remember being impressed with the capital budget committee and how far they are going with that.
Right.
So I think this comment was raised last fall, maybe before we had that discussion with them.
So what do we need to continue?
Well, since then, we've been focusing on developing the capital plan for just facilities.
Facilities plan, talking to Ed today, he wants to have a culvert plan. I mean, there's, as part of the transportation budget.
Do we need this particular article? I'm trying to
Shorten the list?
Yeah, if it's possible.
I think it'd stay on the list. I just don't think it's a priority right now, but I think it's something we need to be doing.
I think it's
I don't think it's perfect yet, so.
I don't think it can always be improved no matter where you go.
So I think we just keep it on there. Personnel plan,
It says invite personnel board. I think we should.
We had them in some time ago, and we went over some issues. I've raised the issues. David's got the issues we've talked about. He just talked earlier about with his new authority, he will have over personnel things. Some of the policies can be changed to the extent they make sense. But I think we should continue to have these discussions so that we may want to establish some policies.
one thing David and I have spoken about is training, education, subscriptions, all those kinds of items that show up in our contracts, they show up in budgets.
Right.
And, I mean, I think that stuff should run through you, David. I don't think that should be something that every department has an option, or every officer has an option to do.
I mean, every department has it in their budget.
But
They schedule the conferences or the duties or the.
Right, but I think that stuff really, there should be a central authority for that stuff, and you should keep tabs on it and say yes or no, and partly based on budget, partly based on what the benefit of it is.
Yeah, and I think we do, I do for our top, fire, police, and CM&D. But I think on a town-wide basis, the only control we have is that input of allowing the money into the budget, or when they submit the bill to.
Well, that's for budgets that are not underneath
Right.
our
But for
control.
budgets that are under our control, there's law out there that elected officials, elected department heads, can't make decisions to spend money on themselves.
That's right.
It's absolutely against the law. So they can't spend this money, actually,
Without David say so.
without independent review by somebody.
Yeah.
Because otherwise they violate the state ethics law. So if they want to go to a conference in Aruba, for example, who makes that decision? Well, in the old days, each department head would make their
But
own
we're still
decision.
seeing that today.
They can't
Well, no,
do it.
David signs off on those now, but.
Yeah, I don't-
But I think sometimes you're kind of forced to sign off after the fact.
Right.
We need a policy on that.
Well,
We really do.
when I find out that, somebody's attended an out-of-state conference or something that has been specifically budgeted in their budget, and they're turning in the expense for it, there's not a lot you can do with that.
Right, but you should have a policy about what kinds of things the town will and won't pay for. And some of the stuff we're paying for, we probably don't need to pay for, or, in flusher times, we would like to pay for it, but in austere times, we're not gonna pay for it. And you just get fewer subscriptions and fewer memberships, or you pay for them out of pocket if you feel they're personally important to you.
Right.
So, for example, the situation where we were asked to we couldn't have somebody come in and witness us signing some forms coming up soon because the individual's away at a conference. In that situation, David, you've already approved the ability for that person to go to that conference because it's in their budget and so forth.
I
Just so
didn't approve
understand the
anything
process.
on their budget. That's an annual conference that they go every year, and that makes sense that it's an in-state annual
Training conference.
training conference. I don't think that.
So that's not something you would otherwise say, even though it's whatever the
No, I
dollars
think-
are, it's not.
Yeah, those, I mean, the in-state ones run by Mass Municipal or the specific organizations.
The value
Other
is
Mass
there to
Municipal.
the community
Yeah.
for that person. to
But I noticed
attend.
you went to a conference last year, David, and you taught or you did something at the conference that helped to subsidize your
Right.
attendance
Well,
there.
that's one of those items that it was International City and County Managers Association.
But I mean, you were creative about how you approached that, and you did it in a way that had added value for the town and also gave you value
Right.
of attending the conference.
I got to go to the conference and there's no
You know,
cost.
we should have we should have a better
It's a
policy. than this.
mindset, yeah, it's more a mindset, than a policy that, we can make policies all day long that people will not necessarily follow, that aren't under our, we have no authority over.
Right.
But if we can establish the mindset consistent with the policy, we.
Well, I mean,
that's
for example,
really-
I see in our contracts, there's something about subscriptions for certain department heads. We could have policy that just says the town doesn't pay for subscriptions. Any information you want to get, you can get off the internet for the most part. If there's really an organization that you have to join, then, make your case and David will approve it on a case-by-case basis, but.
There may also be duplication.
That's right.
Maybe
Maybe-
one department
That's
needs the Boston Globe to look at.
I'm not sure those are the kind of
Has.
subscriptions,
And so but the next department next door also needs the Boston Globe to look at
but,
something else. So if we're paying for like 30 different Boston Globe subscriptions, maybe we could reduce it to one.
Right. Or people could walk up to the library and read the Boston Globe. I don't think we're paying for the Boston Globe. Right?
With the dues and memberships and the professional development, those could be, they could be pulled out of the individual departments and be an expenditure under the Board of Selectmen budget, or, as approved, or it could just be a policy that has, what the approval process is for if it's over X amount or.
Right. And I use this as an example, but not with any criticism of our chief, but I remember when we were interviewing fire chiefs a year ago, there was one candidate who had all kinds of professional credentials from all kinds of international and national associations. Well, those all cost somebody money. They cost either the towns that that person had been working in, or they were coming out of his own pocket. But it was hard, and it maybe enhanced his resume and it maybe gave him some knowledge, but it's hard to see how that could have been particularly valuable to the city or town, that
Right.
somebody was making connections many states away
Right.
on some of the subject. Now, maybe I'm wrong, I'm not an expert on that stuff, but it seems to me we've got to be attentive to that. And I think you'll find it's not a huge number, but I think it's a pretty big number.
Yeah, and I think that's something that, I've talked to different employees about, and it's going to be a tough pill to swallow for me to enforce
That's right.
unless there's a Board of Selectmen policy.
But you're just the guy for the job, and you can definitely do that.
Yeah, but I think I need
You
a
back
balanced
up.
policy.
Yeah, okay.
Monthly financial meetings. This was something I think Peter was.
Trying to get root, and then we got to quarterly, and we've been a little bit haphazard about that, I would say. But we did see something recently in the.
The meetings you have, were they productive? Did they work? Is it something
I-
you think should continue?
I think we should have quarterly updates from the town accountant of those reports. I think they're helpful, but more importantly, do you think they're useful to see?
I do,
Status.
but when you talk about the monthly meetings, I mean, you know,
No,
Do you wanna
we
be-
had already decided we didn't want the monthly
okay, I see,
meetings.
okay.
We're already going to quarterly, that's fine. I think,
Bringing the team in for a quarterly.
By this you mean bringing them in here, it's not
In
private
here.
meetings, okay.
that's right,
Yeah.
yeah. I think David should be having monthly meetings, but, he can manage his crowd the way
Yeah.
he sees fit.
They meet frequently.
Yeah, finance.
So Dave meets frequently, do you meet with them? Or
Yeah.
just meet? Yeah, good. master town calendar, that's, you talked about that already. What is this approval of draft illicit discharge?
Yeah, I'm drawing a blank, but I know we just sent it
Is
to
that,
council.
is that a policy we have to have in place
Yes,
for
I-
the
stormwater.
for the stormwater?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I was going to say, as part of our existing old permit,
This is it, I&I, this is I&I controls or something like that?
Yes.
Okay.
all communities under the old permit have to have it. We don't have it. So technically, by not having it, I mean, someone could claim that we're not, I'm trying to phrase this carefully.
Yeah. Yeah, we're not
Somebody
fully
could
compliant
allege
with
that
our
we're not
yeah.
complying with the existing permit, so we need to have a regulation that would address the issue. So if we ask town council to do that, so it makes sense to do it.
McMahon proposal, you mentioned that.
We already talked about that.
So are they meeting on this?
I'm meeting with Don Croshaw and the CMD director tomorrow morning.
Will there be a public opportunity for folks to hear about that?
Yeah, I think we
Will
have.
they be, whether it's traffic safety or whatever, they will invite the residents on the affected street there?
Right.
I don't know that many of them think it's a great idea. Will there also be, and will there also be testing, like there was testing that showed the thing failed? Will there be testing of this new design, just to make sure it doesn't fail, given the track record here?
Right.
Is a question that needs to be answered. And I don't want
All right, Water Study Committee, we
to
did.
talk about.
Town calendar CM&D.
That's
Yeah,
something you mentioned.
that's something, because I mentioned it at a recent hearing.
I think we should have whether it's a Board of Selectmen calendar, financial calendar, and CMD
Yeah.
calendar, and we can plug.
But hopefully Ed is planning that stuff out anyway, but he's got to do it, and I think, he's thought about getting everything on a maintenance cycle.
He does, it's just in getting it in a form that we would
Okay. All right, good.
work for
I
us.
think we go out the bid on, don't we need to have the fire truck in there?
There are plenty of things more to go out to bid on than this.
Okay.
Well, you gave us the last time around, we talked about the town meeting action items, if there was that list we looked at.
Yeah, but let's add that to this list, so we have a master
Yeah.
list.
There was the town meeting action items and then the capital.
Capital.
Right. So David, can you and Diane work this up again based on this discussion and just circulate it around so we have it for our next meeting?
Yeah, and these ones here are routine annual contracts.
That you're, on that last item is.
Yeah, that's not referring to the things from town.
Right.
Oh, I thought the alarm, was the alarm, were we going to have to replace the alarm system or no?
Well, right now, it's just been nice and quiet, it's been good.
Perfect, okay.
But we have been working up something, maybe down the road, maybe,
Okay.
while.
But it's not a crisis anymore?
It's not a,
Good.
we're not a crisis anymore.
Excellent.
And some of these things don't, you just get 3 bids, and most of them are state vendors when you're talking about services like this.
Right. Okay. Just so we have it on the list. So that's probably, I see town council is here. Upcoming meeting topic requests, was there anything in particular? I may have some ideas for you, but I think we just gave you some there. And I may suggest some stuff to you, David.
Okay.
And then we have selectmen reports. Peter, anything?
No.
Paul, anything to report? Okay. I had a couple things. One was this letter, which I mentioned to you before, David, from FEMA saying they need to know that we passed our floodplain zoning. It's an official reminder from FEMA.
Okay.
So now I'm reminding you.
Okay.
Well, let me just make a comment that how forward-thinking this board was and this town is. That we went ahead in anticipation of a letter like this might come and did everything that needed to be done. So when the letter came, we're already in compliance.
Yeah. Which is
So
good.
my hat's off to the board, to
Well, to Gino, really, wasn't he the one who pulled that together?
Yes.
Gino, to the planning board, to all propose,
Well, we control the warrant, so it's really the board of selectmen which really do this.
That's right.
there was the chairman of the board.
Peter, then Chairman, now you're talking.
But it's nice to see things done right so that when the bad letter comes in that says, watch out, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
We've already taken care of it.
I'll talk to
See,
Gino to see
what?
if
He's already
turned
informed
in.
them or not. Yeah.
Otherwise, I'll send something that's a certified, showing a certified vote.
Perfect.
And once it comes back from the Attorney General's, then we can.
Great. All right, good. So now we can do the consent agenda items. We had some minutes.
I move approval of the minutes of March 6th, March 13th, and March 20th.
My second.
I just had a couple of questions, but I would favor that. My questions had to do with, let's see, they were, I believe they were both on the March 20th, but I'm not positive about that. I didn't have anything on the 16th, 13th. Yeah, March 20th. This motion moved to acquire the land as discussed tonight by Mr. Murphy and to authorize Mr. Williams to institute the procedures necessary to acquire the land and to solicit proposals for an easement for a sidewalk in front of the property. That's the part I didn't understand. Is that phrased correctly?
Well, look, it was your motion, so.
But I probably got it from you.
Talk about finger pointing. Well, the purpose of that was that they came here with a proposal that had an easement that went only halfway across the frontage of the property. This is for the Abbey Road development. But in order to build a sidewalk, we needed the whole way. And Attorney Murphy said, we couldn't give you the right in fee, that's why we didn't include it, because if we gave you the whole fee, then we wouldn't front on the road, we wouldn't have frontage, so we couldn't meet zoning and all of this. But he said I could give you an easement. And so the purpose of this motion was to make sure that the swap that we're talking about, because they need some town land in order to do this development, the swap we're talking about in return for the town land is going to include a part in fee and in part an easement that would provide the full layout for a sidewalk across the front.
Okay, and I remember those facts, and I guess I'm wondering what solicit proposals for the easement means.
Because in order to get this under 30B.
Okay, so it's a
Section
chapter
16.
30B bid, so have we done that, David? I guess that's where that gets to. Was there something we were supposed to do to advertise that we wanted an easement?
No.
Okay.
I'm not-
So
we
that's
haven't done
what, so that's what I don't understand, is this reference to solicit proposals. And then my only other comment on that was under the Pulte discussion, where you mentioned a Sherborn resident who went on the COA-sponsored field trip to view other Pulte developments, expressed her support. We typically try to put people's names in there. If you've got the name, we should just put it in. Do you remember who that was, Diane?
No, but I can just review the tables when I see the.
Okay.
faces.
Put that in. So with those, I guess would that change? Because I guess nobody has any concerns about solicit? Okay. So with that change, I would agree to this 20th also. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Okay.
All right.
Good. Those minutes are done. Approval of the warrants. Peter, you got a chance to look through this,
I
right?
briefly looked at it. It's, so I move to approve subject to David's review. and approval.
Second. Okay, all in favor?
We
should
should
sign that, I
before we
guess.
leave, because
Yeah.
then you won't have to come back.
Yeah, that won't be there. Okay.
We, on the solicit the proposal, we did have that as part of the appraiser on her map.
Was it
The value
solicit
of
a
that.
proposal for an appraiser?
I don't know.
Might have been.
Maybe that was it.
So you want to amend that just to clarify the wording, because Diane's going to review the tape.
Well,
Well, if she
Well,
reviews the
I-
tape, she can see what the motion actually said. If it said that, then it said that. I mean,
That's right.
I wasn't concerned about the appraiser. I was concerned to communicate to the Abbey Road developer, if they're watching, hope they agree, that the land swap is not just for a little crescent.
Oh, yeah,
We have to have
The easement.
you were very clear that night about that. That's, there's no question about that, I remember that. And that does say that here. I just don't know if it's, okay, anyway, we're past that. And now, we move into executive session. Peter, did you take the magic language when you got down as
No, you
chair?
have
No, I
it.
have it? Oh,
You have
good,
it.
perfect,
Somebody has it?
excellent.
just the bottom half of
Okay, good, thank you. I move that the Board of Selectmen enter into executive session to discuss strategy? No?
I'm sorry.
Was there
When is-
something else we
When
need
is
to-
the next meeting?
Oh, when is the next meeting? Good, before we do that.
I was asking for it to be changed away from June 12th because my son is graduating.
Right, and June 5th is Peter's speech to the
Right.
graduating senior.
And we have a big warrant 2 weeks from now.
Right. One thought was to do it Friday morning. Can you do,
I'm going to leave town and not come back for long.
you leaving now?
No,
I mean, next Friday. I mean, next Friday. The 6th of June.
Well, we won't have the warrant, so we still have to deal with the warrant, but we can.
You won't have the
You and I
warrant,
might need to deal with that.
and I don't think you'll have the borrowing documents
Why not?
at that time. So I think they put it out to bid and he's bringing back on the 10th. But he's on vacation too, so I can't tell the timing of that. But I
So
thought
we're the
that
only ones
that's,
that can't take vacation.
excuse me?
I mean, apparently we're the only ones that can't take vacation.
I thought that that's, originally he had communicated that the options would be to sign that on the 10th or 11th in the morning.
So we just come
He
in.
didn't check with Paul, whose son is graduating and is not having
Right.
having a meeting that week, so.
Right.
I guess our choice is to have a meeting the week Paul's out and do it for the purpose of signing what Pete needs us to sign.
Well, I thought he was fine with us coming in to sign individually. So the two of us could come in on the 10th or the 11th, is the way I understood.
But don't we have to
Sign
vote
it.
we have to vote on that, we have to vote to approve the borrowing. We won't have done that unless we have a meeting next week.
Unless you schedule, yeah.
I can't do the 6th. I have in the morning, Friday morning.
Unless just the two of you set a meeting on the 10th or the 11th.
Which won't let us deal with the warrant. And that, so that's why I want to do the whole smash on the following Monday.
Which is which day?
The 9th?
No, like the 14th or 15th, whatever it is.
16th?
16th. That Monday morning. But the question is whether we could be witnessed in signing this
And
borrowing.
what
I don't remember.
were the
Other than there
dates
was
that
a
Carol was
time-
going to be out?
there was a time crunch because I had to get to the DOR. in
How about
time for
Tuesday, the
July
17th?
19th.
I'm just afraid I'll be en route back.
Well, that's way too late for this other thing, for the borrowing. For the borrowing. But I thought the Monday would still, you know,
Monday the
pushing the
16th
envelope.
is, well, can we do it in the morning? or-
Yeah, that's what I'm fine. Do it so that we meet Monday morning at 10 o'clock.
And Paul says he's not going to be back yet, though.
You're not gonna be back that Monday morning? No.
I don't know.
Oh, you don't know?
I have to ask Linda.
Who hasn't been feeding you very well.
She's been away with my daughter, so there you go. I'm wasting away.
So what are we doing?
You're for sure not meeting on the 5th, and you're for sure not meeting on the 12th, right?
We're not meeting on the 5th unless we meet without Peter, but there's nothing pressing for the 5th anyway.
Right.
And I'm fine that you can meet without me at any time.
It just seems like there's nothing pressing, and
That's
our
right.
typical practice has been to try to
That's
get this to an every other week thing.
That's right.
On the 12th, just so people understand, we're trying to work around a schedule of one of the selectmen who has a graduation, a family graduation to go to, but we also have some logistical issues because we need to address a borrowing issue, and in order to do that, we need to be witnessed by the town clerk, and the town clerk will not be in the office for a period of time based on some planned, I guess, educational travel.
I think that's after noon on June 11th.
So afternoon on June 11th, the town clerk won't be available. So we can't do anything those 3 days anyway. And then we need to have something done by the beginning of the following week. We need to have a meeting by the beginning of the following week in order to be able to sign the borrowing authorization. And we also can't sign it next week because it won't be ready yet. So our window is very narrow.
Well, I could do the 17th for sure. That's Tuesday, the 17th. Is that
The
outside?
morning of Tuesday the 17th, and then what Diane is saying is that's too late to file it with revenue.
Because he's got to get it to the
But
DOI.
didn't he say that we could, without having a meeting, Mike,
Yeah.
we retroactively approve the borrowing at a subsequent selectmen's meeting?
Right.
How can you retroactively
Sign the
approve borrowing,
thing.
though?
No, I think you would have to
I think we have to vote
approve
it ahead
it
of time,
Yeah, ahead of time, and then you could go in and sign later.
which means we need a meeting next week to approve borrowing. Or you and I need to meet the week of the 12th, or the week of the 9th, to approve borrowing and sign the warrant. Maybe that's the best.
That, you know what it
Also,
was?
we should just have that's right, we should just do the,
He was thinking before the 10th or 11th, you come in and sign, and then the evening of the 12th, at your regular meeting, you
That's
would
right.
vote to
That
approve
was
it,
his
before he's
suggestion.
got it mailed
Well,
out.
but that's not how it's going to work.
No, but that's what, at the time, that's what he was
Right.
thinking.
In a perfect world.
I could do a meeting on June 9th. Monday, June 9th. Is that in the window here?
Would we do a morning meeting that day, Paul? Is that what you're talking about?
Morning or night? We could do a full.
we could have full smash on the
You
night.
can do it in the morning, but
Except,
at night, I think the clerk will be around and she probably makes.
Okay, so let's do that.
or if she could do it the evening of the night.
Do you give a preference?
Well, if we're going to have a full selectmen's meeting.
Should be the
it
evening.
should be the
Evening. Yeah, and just have her come in, she can come in, it's not like she has a particular schedule.
Do the 9th in lieu of both the 5th and the 12th, and put everything that's on the
Yeah.
agenda on the 9th for the full selectmen's meeting.
Then there'll still be a warrant.
Yeah, but we know how we've done the warrants in the past, we just do it that way, desktop review and signature by the Tuesday morning at noon, the following Tuesday.
I don't remember borrowing being this much of a time crunch in the past.
Neither do I don't understand.
What's the borrowing for?
This,
Is
I
it-
don't know, it has some CM&D money in it.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah,
participation or something.
I don't have to know. I don't know if it's a short-term note, or if it's the borrowing of the capital item.
I'm just trying to determine whether there's multiple vacation issues, and that's what we're dealing with, or are we dealing with,
We're
we
dealing
can't buy
with,
the truck unless we borrow the money to buy it.
We were told we can't approve this borrowing too soon. We can't sign it too soon. He told us this by email, we can't sign it too soon, and we have to sign it by a certain date, so our window's very narrow. And then we were told that the town clerk won't be there during that narrow window. That's set for a couple of mornings. And then we were told that it's tough to schedule a meeting of this board, so it's kind of a triple whammy. So it looks like the 9th in the evening is what we've got
Yeah.
planned?
yeah.
Okay. 6 o'clock on the 9th. Is this room available?
I don't know yet.
On the 9th? On the 9th?
Yeah, Monday night. All right, good. That was the hardest thing we did all day.
When I looked at Pete's note, he said it's a renewal, so that leads me to believe that it's a short-term thing.
Yeah.
Bond anticipation note.
So we took
but
it out
road
before
construction
we
projects.
had moved down on the acquisition, and now we're closing in on the acquisition, but the timing of the renewal, it's, yeah.
Yeah, it's something to ask him, David, just for our education, is why the window's so narrow. I just don't remember that. In the
Yeah,
past.
and we would definitely have brought that if we could have.
Yeah,
I think he's in Machu Picchu.
I see. Well, that's nice. Okay, I move that the Board of Selectmen enter into an executive session to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining and litigation or an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the town's litigating and collective bargaining position, and the chair so declares pursuant to General Laws, Chapter 38, Section 21A3, with respect to police union negotiations and the following pending case: Cannon et al. Versus Town of Sherborn Board of Appeals, Cannon et al. Versus Town of Sherborn Planning Board et al., and pursuant to General Laws, Chapter 38, Section 21A2, to conduct contract negotiations with non-union personnel, the CM&D director.
I second.
Okay. We need a roll call vote. Mr. Caruso?
Aye.
Mr. Durances?
Aye.
And I'm aye. And we're going to go into executive session, not come back.
All right.